The Nashville Predators lost their fifth in a row last night against the Ottawa Senators, and it was a perfect game to compare and contrast a team ready to make a serious playoff run and a Nashville Predators team that is still lost.
You're Locked On Predators, your daily podcast on the Nashville Predators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to this Tuesday episode of the Locked On Predators podcast. Thanks so much for making us your first listen of the day. We are a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to kick off this yet another painful game recap episode, shouting out our Locked On Predators insiders and our everydayers who tune in each weekday to talk Nashville Predators hockey with us. We appreciate your support. We love getting through this season together. I'm Ann Kimmel. I am a writer and co-host with Penalty Box Radio, and my friends, I have a partner in crime.
You do. I'm Emma Lingen, and I'm the Predators site editor and reporter for the Hockey News.
Well, Emma, last night, the Nashville Predators fell by a score of 5-2 to the Ottawa Senators. And I think this game is a great opportunity to really talk through the on-ice comparison between the Ottawa Senators. This is a team ready to make a playoff push, and the Nashville Predators, who are 2/3 of the way through a season and look as lost as if it were week one. We're going to talk about the biggest disparities between these two teams, a couple of bright spots for the Nashville Predators, and we're going to talk about Roman Josi. Before we dive into all of that, want to let you know today's episode is sponsored by FanDuel. New customers can bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Yeah, Emma. Losing game recap. Predators lost their fifth in a row. Do you remember the good old days where they won 5 in a row? It feels like it's been 84 years since they won a game, Emma. Holy crap.
Yeah, somehow the 5-game losing streaks always feel longer than the 5-game winning streaks. I don't know if you feel that way, but I do.
It's like dog years. Like, like you win a game and it feels like 60 minutes. You lose a game and it feels like 7 years of your life. Although this game, with that whole goaltender interference 8.5-minute review, actually did feel like 7 years of our life. God bless Wes McCauley and crew.
Why can't we have nice things? We had a nice 6:30 puck drop on a Monday. I'm like, this is beautiful. Y'all, it may not sound like it makes that big of a difference, but that 30 minutes, it does. But you know what? It took freaking 30 minutes for them to review that entire sequence in the first period. And so it completely offset the extra 30 minutes that we got. But
yes, and we'll talk about it later, but secretly, I don't think they got it right. But we'll talk about that later. But that was dog years of a review.
After 3 reviews of the exact same thing, then I would hope that they don't change what the call was.
Yes.
And they didn't.
They're consistent, which is not something we can say about the Nashville Predators. We've got that. Of course, always kick off our game recaps with one word to describe the game. Emma, can you pick an FCC compliant word to describe this game?
Yes, but I'm going to go 2 words because
totally
we make our own rules.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm stealing them from Andrew Brunette because he used them in his post-game press conference. Unnecessary penalties.
Yes.
Too many unnecessary penalties. Now, did the Senators get a little bit of help from the officials in this game? Yes. But I'm not going to sit here and say that officiating is what cost Nashville this game, because it absolutely did not.
No.
Too many unnecessary penalties. And when I say unnecessary, I mean, like, these are not hockey penalties. These are just careless, there's a difference between playing with an edge and just being reckless. And I think that we saw some recklessness, and we just saw the game, that those penalties, especially in the third period, that's where you see the game just really get away from them.
Yeah.
So again, like, they were in it. They were in it until they weren't. And I think that it's those penalties, that's, again, you kind of see the difference between, like, this is how a winning team responds to adversity and
Yes.
handles these things, and how the Predators did, that's not what they did.
Yeah,
So,
I
yeah.
absolutely agree. My one word, right along the same line, instead of the word mishaps, which we have heard Andrew Brunette use referring to certain plays, like the Nashville Predators will have a mishap. My word is a new word, totally making it up, and it's habitual haps. Because it's not like a ooh mishap, it's a
Mhm.
habitual hap. Y'all keep doing the same things over and over. Now, I will say this, Nashville cycles through dumb things, but there are habitual haps that this team does, and I think not just on ice execution wise, but I think, like you're talking about, the mental game as well, that are really causing a lot of self-inflicted problems. I will say this, I think it's very clear, and we're going to dive into more of the compare and contrast between these two teams in this particular 60 minutes. I think it was very clear that Ottawa was the better team. Ottawa outplayed Nashville. But man, Nashville, how many self inflicted wounds are you going to take before you step away from the knife throwing contest? Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, I think that this is one where, like you said, for the majority of that 60 minutes, Nashville was outplayed, but the game, like, the final score should have been much closer. The game should have been much closer because they could have been in it. Again, they were in it, but like you said, the self-inflicted wounds. I mean, they just beat themselves more often than anything at this
Yes.
point. Just they can't get out of their own way. And
Yep.
that's what's so frustrating about it all.
Yep. We, of course, chat with our insiders and get their one word. Dustin's one word for tonight's game is slow and steady doesn't win the race. These boys are playing like a 1970 Coupe de Ville being driven on a Formula One circuit. Slow and clunky and constantly having to stop and ask for directions. So frustrating to watch. Frustrating, a word repeated in the post game. Another insider's one word is sell. It's time to pull the plug on this season and sell whoever you can that isn't replaceable. Novak, Sissons, McCarron, Nyquist, etc. Trade them all for whatever you can, even if it's just a late round pick. We're actually going to dive more into that coming up later this week and next week as well, about what the Predators need to do and who they should sell and for what. Henry's one word, coach bump. Gaten's one word, grab a thesaurus and pick any word you want synonymous with pathetic. Had a really interesting comment from an everydayer, old Jim. That's how he referred to himself. Jim, age is not a disease. We don't do that. But I understand that. He had a really interesting thought, Emma, and I want to run this past you and get your take on this. Talking about, like the Nashville players, they don't have a spark. They're looking uninspired, and talking about penalties and officiating. There was that non-call on Adam Wilsby. He had that trip shorthanded. And old Jim's suggestion. Old Jim, stop that. Jim's suggestion, Bruno should have purposely gone bonkers to get ejected to perhaps connect with the team on a different level. Literally take one for the team. And you know what? Normally, like, first of all, theater major, here for all the drama. But normally, that's not something that would be in my wheelhouse. But honestly, we're at a point with this Predators team where I'm like, you may have to, as the head coach, lose your shit to get this team to play inspired hockey. And I was like, you know what? I would have backed that play tonight.
Yeah, I think to a degree, I like, to an extent, I'm on board with that. I don't know that he had to go so far as to get himself thrown out of the game. Because in the NHL you got to do kind of a lot to get
Yeah, you
yourself
do.
thrown out of the game. But it's not like baseball where you can basically you'll look at the umpire the wrong way and they'll throw you out if they're having a bad day. Like I think that in I do think that Brunette should have or could have you know argued that one a little bit more. I thought it was a clear trip on Willsby. I thought it absolutely should have been a penalty, if not a penalty shot. I mean, just based on how that play went down. So I would have kind of expected to see a little bit more emotion off the bench on that one. Again, it's hard for me to kind of nitpick at that though, because at that point the game had already kind of started to get away from them. So I'm like, I don't think that was the turning point. I'm not sure the outcome of this game is a Predators win if Brunette does lose it in that situation. But yeah, it is one of those where you would kind of like to see a little bit more what the hell, like towards
A
the
little more
officials.
zhuzh.
Again, I think everyone watching that, I mean, it was like, where's the call? Where is the call on that? And it's tough. So
Yeah. I just thought that was an interesting thought. I'm like, normally that's not something that's in my wheelhouse, but at this point in the season, with the way the team looked in that game, lose it, Bruno. And you could always do a torts and just refuse to leave. I mean, apparently that's an option in the NHL for a few minutes.
Then when you're Tortorella, you're the boy who cried wolf, and when you lose it so much, then no one pays attention to you anymore. So
That's true.
It's a balance. It's a fine
backfire. Yeah. Coming up, we are going to talk about more in depth the differences between these two teams that really showed where Ottawa is and showed where Nashville is not. We've touched on some of them. We're going to dive a little deeper. We're also going to tell you what we think of this game, and we're going to hear from Ryan O'Reilly and what he thought after the game as well. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Super Bowl 59 is here. One game, two teams, endless possibilities. And there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. Whether it is predicting that first touchdown, calling the MVP, or even betting on the coin toss, FanDuel makes it easy to get in on the action. With live betting all game long, you can adjust your bets as the game unfolds and feel the thrill from kickoff to the final whistle. The live betting features let you stay involved no matter what happens on the field, and the app is super easy to navigate. Plus, knowing that you can place a $5 bet and potentially win $200 in bonus bets for the Super Bowl, friends, that's the icing on the cake. Download the app or head to fanduel.com to get started. Bet just $5. And if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. That's fanduel.com. Bet with FanDuel, official partner of Super Bowl 59. All right, Emma, we were talking about it and had touched on it, just sort of comparing and contrasting these two teams. And, I think the one thing you touched on earlier is just momentum and the mental game. And in the beginning, we talked about it was 84 years for Wes McCauley and crew to figure out what was and wasn't a goal. And look, I'm just going to say this. I thought it was a goal watching it back. But again, goalie interference, the most nebulous and undefinable thing in the whole wide world.
My whole thing, though, is when it was the call on the ice and then the officials themselves initiated the review and confirmed the call. Why then
challenge it?
Do you really think Toronto's going to come in and overrule something they've already looked at twice? Like, I didn't. We were all a little.
Yeah.
Those of us who, again, we were all excited about our 6:30 puck drop. We were not very happy about that because it was just the period that would never end.
Yes.
And then, so we were all just like, okay, what are we doing here? Why are we doing this? I mean, even talking to some media members from Ottawa, they were like, yeah, I don't know why they challenged.
Yeah.
Like, it made no sense.
I get why they thought it was a goal. I would have thought it was a goal too, but I'm with you. Like, look, they've said twice.
At that point, you just let it go.
That's like asking your mom, can I have a piece of candy? No. Can I have a piece of candy? No. Ask her a third time and see what you get for dinner. Like, I'm just saying.
F around, find out.
Find out. Yeah. And so I get why Ottawa would have been extremely frustrated with that situation and with that call. I get that. But what did they do? They picked themselves up, they killed off the penalty, and they got right back to business. And I think that's what you see Nashville struggle with. Nashville, the moment there is a hitch in the giddy up, the moment they have that mishap in a game, they cannot get back to what they were doing well. And so many times in this game, you saw Ottawa get back to it. Nashville scored and tied the game up. What did Ottawa do? Get back to it. You know, you just see a team that didn't shift mentally, that didn't have to dig super deep when they were faced with adversity. You know, good teams make the mental, emotional shift and get right back into gear. You don't see Nashville doing that. And sometimes you don't see Nashville get in gear when things are even going their way. And for me, that was such a disparity between these teams.
Yeah. I mean, it was the tale as old as time or as old as this season, where it's like, even when Nashville does something well, they get on the board first, boom, immediately they let the opponent get back in it, whether it's by committing a penalty or just a defensive lapse. I mean, it's painful to watch because they can't build a definitive lead or like play with any kind of confidence. Again, I even go back to those wins over San Jose, that like, even those, I mean, great, you beat San Jose, you let them score 10 goals on you. Like,
In 2 games.
Yes, it shouldn't have been that interesting. You should have put them away. That you shouldn't have let them make it that interesting. And it just like, yeah, bunch of goals, cool, entertainment value, but still, like, that's not how it should be going. And, again, even with these low scoring games, well, this one was a low scoring game until the third period. They're just, again, it's getting in their own way. They're beating themselves more than any of these teams are beating them.
Yeah. We talk about the penalties and look, love Zach Leroux, love that he saw Wicked. Like we're nearly best friends by now after a little tiff. And you want to have a player like a Zach Leroux. You look at Ottawa, they've got a Tkachuk. He's a pot stirrer. He's a physicality guy. He's a get in there and mix it up. Didn't see Brady Tkachuk sitting down. You saw him stirring it. You saw him mixing it up. You saw him being physical, but you didn't see him sitting down. Zach Leroux, bless your heart, but you sat in the penalty box more than a colonoscopy patient sits on the toilet for the prep. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing? And
Yeah.
Andrew Brunette was asked about it. And again, he is young and he is learning. But Andrew Brunette was asked about it in the post game, and he didn't mince words. He said it's getting a little bit carried away. Got to tighten it up. And Zach Leroux just has to learn, look, if you have a reputation, you're not going to get a call in your favor. Like, that's just the way this works. But smart plays versus dumb penalties. And that's what you saw. And Leroux and Tkachuk, that's just a microcosm of, you want this role, but you have to do it the right way. And Nashville, they're just not doing things the right way.
No. And again, the officiating itself, while questionable at times, particularly in the third period, that is not what lost them this game.
No.
Like, they should not have been in a position like that in the first place.
Right. Nashville lost this game all on their own. We did get a chance to talk to Ryan O'Reilly. And again, we want you to know that we're going to set up a Venmo for a special sports psychologist because, Ryan O'Reilly. First of all, Ryan O'Reilly hates to lose. Ryan O'Reilly hates to make mistakes. You know how Preds fans chant, "You suck, it's all your fault"? When Ryan O'Reilly makes a mistake, I fear he goes home and does that in the mirror. And he had some mistakes. there were some big mistakes tonight by
But
veterans like Ryan O'Reilly.
he was not the only one either. So
No, no.
let's just say that. But
Yes.
yes.
Ryan O'Reilly, it's not all your fault. But it was interesting hearing from him, and we got kind of the same vibe from everybody in the post game. This is what Ryan O'Reilly had to say about mindset and this game.
Yeah, I feel, whether it's the mindset or something that, we just get tighter in these tough situations. Things get tighter. I know myself, get tighter. And again, like I said, make mistakes, and that cost us. And it's, it's tough. I think, we've kind of, we lost that excitement, that obviously that winning mindset, because we have been finding ways to lose games, and it's frustrating. We have to keep fighting to get it back. This last little stretch has not been fun by any means, and we have to shift our mindset and build something. Yeah, we win 5. I felt like we found something, and it was a part of it, and things are going well, and then just back into a hole again. I don't know much to say. I know myself, this 5 game set hasn't been good at all, and I think leadership-wise, I myself have to be a lot better, and other leaders as well. We have to, lead this thing back to something positive, because it's not good right now.
Emma, how concerned are you, not just, as he's talking about leaders, and I'm not just talking about on ice performance. Obviously, we need more from the veterans. How concerned are you about where they're at mentally at this point in the season in the locker room?
Well, I think that's a kind of a loaded question and could mean a lot of different things. I think concerned in the sense that, do I think that they have the wrong mindset going into this? No.
No.
I'm not
Yeah.
concerned whatsoever. I don't think any of these guys, veteran or young player, I don't think any of them is okay with what's happening right now. None of them is okay with losing. They really hate it. And so I don't think that they have the wrong mindset in that regard. But in terms of the mental toll that this is taking on them, yeah, it's concerning. It's the same thing we've said all year about how it's that frustration, and it's a dangerous emotion, and it's, it creates this vicious cycle, because the more frustrated you are, you don't play with confidence, you make more of the mistakes that make you more frustrated, and you can't break out of this cycle. So when it comes to the mentality in the locker room, I'm not concerned that there's any complacency at all.
I agree.
If anything, I think it's almost the opposite extreme, is like they're too, upset with themselves. They're frustrated with themselves. That you can debate, but I think what bothers me is anyone who's saying that this team doesn't care, or they're not trying, they don't want to win. That this team has a lot of problems, and that is not one of them. So when it comes to the mentality in the locker room, I'm not concerned about it in that way. But it is, of course you're concerned when you see the frustrations, and there's no clear way out of it, and it's just been this way all year.
Yeah, I would agree with you. This is a team that wants to win. This is a team that is not going to give up. This is a team that's competitive. Andrew Brunette said yesterday morning after morning skate, I have not left the rink feeling like it was a lack of effort. And I don't, for whatever you say about this win-loss record, it's not an effort issue for the Nashville Predators. I do think winning begets confidence, and I think you see that last night with the Ottawa Senators. They don't blink because they have pushed through the adversity, and they're like, hey, we know what happens on the other side. Nashville was there at the end of the season last year. Hey, we pushed through adversity, and we know what happens on the other side. Nashville, I think, is struggling to push through the adversity. They know what's on the other side. I think they're struggling to figure out how to fix what's not working. And because I think in different games, it's a moving target of what's not working, then it becomes a very frustrating situation. Coming up, we're going to tell you one other area where we feel like we could learn something from the Ottawa Senators. And then, friends, we're going to turn the page and we're going to take a minute and talk about the captain, Roman Josi. We spend a lot of time, Emma and I, prepping for the podcast and putting these podcasts out. We also spend a lot of time chatting with our Locked On Predators insider community via subtext. We weigh in with them before games, talk about what Emma and I are watching for, listen to them about what they are hoping to see from the Nashville Predators. And friends, we get together and commiserate when we have games like we had last night. If you are interested in talking beyond the podcast about the Nashville Predators with Emma and I, we want to invite you to join our insider community via subtext. It's a great way to connect. You can learn more by clicking the link in the video description or the link in our show's bio. Emma, just one other area where I feel like we can just sort of observe a difference between Ottawa and Nashville. And this comes from something that one of the insiders shared, and one of the insiders had said after this game. I think a problem here is that, yes, there are some confidence issues, depth issues, maybe roster issues, identity issues. There are some offensive dynamics that are lacking here. There's a different word, but I can't say it, y'all. I can't say that word. Not FCC. I just can't get it out of my mouth. The Preds are a team that are stretched way, way too thin. As our concerned mothers all used to say, you are doing way too much. And I think Nashville is seeing that. You know, Phil, Josi, Stamkos, and Marchessault have been a little bit quiet. Marchie had a great power play goal in this game. But you look around and it seems like there's not enough for Nashville that is executing right now. And I feel like you see Ottawa with, you know, veterans like Claude Giroux, and then you've got these young guys like Jake Sanderson. And so up and down the lineup in different age brackets and different experience levels, you're getting production. And I feel like, man, Nashville hasn't seen that this season.
Yeah, it's really just mind-blowing, this whole season. I mean, this is a team that, I mean, they were universally picked as a favorite before the season, and now the entire thing has just been a dumpster fire. And it's, again, it's not even just like you said, it's not one thing. It's not easy to point to. It's just, you know, there's a belief in the group. And when I say belief, I don't necessarily mean they're not walking around, you know, with stars in their eyes, like, guys, we can still go on an 18-game point streak and make the playoffs. Like, I don't think anyone is really realistically thinking that, but there is a belief that this group has what it takes to be a winning team. And I don't think that that is an outlandish belief to have. I mean, that's why Barry Trotz went and got these guys over the summer. So again, there's still that belief within the group that it's like, okay, guys, we have the pieces, we have the ingredients here. And we're just not putting it together. And so I think that there's a belief in each other and in what they have there, but they just, for whatever reason, have not been able to put it together.
Yeah. And you see what that inability to put it together, that almost confusion. And Ryan O'Reilly said, even as a veteran, when things are going the way they're going, everybody tightens up. And that just compounds things. That's the snowball rolling down the hill for this Predators team. But friends, the snowball is still on the hill rolling. And you see that very obviously in last night's game against, again, an Ottawa Senators team that looks like they are right where they want to be to get ready to make that playoff push. There was some good news in last night's game. There was reason to celebrate, just one little reason to celebrate, friends. And that is Roman Josi setting the franchise record for games played. He passed David Legwand with 957 games played with the Nashville Predators franchise. About 8,000 more minutes of ice time than David Legwand, you know, that defenseman thing. They had said something on the broadcast about, like, I wonder how many miles. I want to see miles. How many miles has Roman Josi skated in 957 games? Because friends, I bet it's a lot. Roman Josi also holds career franchise records for assists, points, and shots, and single season records for the franchise in assists, points, and shots. All of those came in that 2021-22 season for him. Emma, another reason that we have heard Roman Josi's name recently, if people have been throwing out there as one, I guess, does about Roman Josi being traded. Do you just want to take like 38 seconds and address any talk of a Roman Josi trade?
Not really, no, because it's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen, you all. What are you doing?
First of all, he's not getting traded unless he approves it. There's also just no way. I mean, I know people are now can say crazier things have happened. I mean, the Dallas Mavericks traded Luka, so like anything's possible, but I don't know. I think that any quote unquote rumors that you hear about Roman Josi are not rumors with any sort of meat to them. It's literally just some hockey pundit is saying, hey, Team X is going on a playoff run and they need a good offensive defenseman. Hey, you know who's a good offensive defenseman? Roman Josi. And those two separate thoughts get put together and turned into, oh, that would be a good fit. And it's like, yeah, but you're ignoring all of the other logistics at play. So
100%.
Yeah,
yes.
That's as much time as I want to spend talking about that.
Roman Josi could bring you a haul, but just because a player is one of your best trade pieces also means you might not want to trade him.
Well, he's also technically not a trade piece.
Tradable.
He has trade protection in his contract. He's not going anywhere unless he wants to. So
that's right. Yeah. It's not
also
happening.
Also, when your defense is as horrific as it has been, maybe don't trade like the good
guy
you have.
I have to laugh when I hear people suggest you need to trade Roman Josi. You can get a lot for him. And I'm like, you know what you can't get when you trade Roman Josi away? You can't get Roman Josi. And like you said, when you are looking at the defensive landscape, yes, there are some prospects in the pipeline, but you got a Roman Josi right now. And I don't care what you say about we need to rebuild and this. You know what? Even before the season before Stamkos and Marchessault were even a twinkle in Barry Trotz's eye, Barry Trotz talked about this youth movement soft rebuild, and he said it has to happen with 3 players: UC Saros, Filip Forsberg, and Roman Josi. Roman Josi's not going anywhere, y'all.
And rebuilds also don't happen overnight. I mean, you got to look at, like, we just talked about this last week. Look at a team like Pittsburgh. I mean, they still have Sidney freaking Crosby on their roster, but they're headed for a rebuild. Whether they want to acknowledge it or not, they are. They just traded Marcus Pettersson and Drew O'Connor, and it's, like you can do that. You can still. People think that rebuild means get rid of
everything of value.
Yeah,
everything of value.
That's not what it means. It's not what it has to mean anyway. So I think that, it's.
Thank you so much.
It's not happening.
Yeah,
and thank you so much.
Thank you so much, because it just, every time I see it, I'm like, no, it's not. And here's the thing: Nashville has 3 first-round picks already. Barry Trotz carrying them around in his pocket. And the rate that the Predators are going, if this Ottawa game is any indication, Nashville is going to just continue to increase their odds in the draft lottery of getting a really good pick. So, there's that. But I agree with you. You don't have to sell off everything of value to recollect things of value. And again, Barry Trotz already has some great draft capital in his pocket. Of course, we will dive into more of the draft talk. We'll dive into more of the trade talk, more of the what should the Predators do before the deadline talk later on this week and into next week. Yes, the NHL is taking a 4 Nations breaks, but fret not, friends. Emma and I are not. We will cover the action at the 4 Nations, but we have lots of other things that we're going to be talking with you about. bringing on some special guests as well, and might even throw in a couple of fun crossovers as well. So make sure you stay tuned in to the Locked On Predators podcast. Before we wrap up this one, Emma, will you let everyone know where they can find you and your work?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Emma_Lingen, but only if you're going to say nice things. I know we're all upset. We're all upset that the team is not winning. I am not your emotional dumping ground. Please do not find me on social media just to yell at me, because I don't
We're
have
not
a say.
therapists.
No.
We're
And
just
I also
recruiters.
I don't coach the team or own the team or do anything. So like I feel you, but like maybe
Can't
not.
change it.
Maybe just don't. And you can find my work at the Hockey News.
Absolutely. Emma and I love talking about Nashville Predators hockey. We love commiserating, but we are actually not the emotional crap bag. So don't dump it all here. We'll talk through it, but don't just dump and run. That's rude.
Yes.
You can find me on social media with your delightful thoughts at @AnnK_Mama on Ice. You can find my work with Penalty Box Radio as well. Friends, that's going to do it for this game recap on this Tuesday. Thanks so much for making us your first listen of the day. We'll be back tomorrow to try to sort through more of what this Nashville Predator team needs to do. We'll see you then.